I don't know any of these people, but it makes an impact on their life. And it's just like, that's what the radio station is all about. Campus radio, it's a totally different beast. The whole reason for our space existing is for people to come in and to use it in new and interesting and different ways. I like big ideas and I like good ideas. So, you know, if you come to me and you've got a good idea, I'm going to try and figure out how to make it work. If it works, it works. If not, we'll figure out a way to kind of make it work. Being behind the scenes, being behind the microphone, I've never felt any sort of nerves.
Okay.
This sort of thing,
Yeah.
this makes me nervous.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Two Fries podcast, aka the #1 podcast in Winnipeg, where we document the rise and stardom of Winnipeg's talent and personalities. Turns out a bunch of people listening to this episode are not subscribed. So if you see a red button that doesn't say subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. It gives us a reason to continue creating this show and put the city on the map together. Today we have Jared McKetiak on the podcast. Some may also say the reason why this show is here. He was one of the first people to show us the ways at UMFM Radio 101.5, and he's here to talk about their pledge drive, a way you can give back to the local community in Winnipeg. So if you like this episode, if you gain any piece of value from this, please hit the subscribe button, and there's a donation link at the top of the description. See you next week. Jared, we know each other for a long, long time.
Yeah.
We were just recapping right now. 2019, fall of 2019, we ran into each other, and we internally back here with the team, we owe you a lot of credit. So.
Well, okay, so you guys, you know, like, you guys are very, very gracious. This is one of the reasons why I really like working with you. But, you know, like, let's give credit where credit is due. You're the type of volunteer that we like to see at UMFM. Because you come in with an idea and you're just looking for a way to execute, right? And the whole reason for our space existing is for people to come in and to use it in new and interesting and different ways, right? And when you guys came in and you were super prepared, you were focused, you knew exactly what it was that you wanted to do, and it was just simply, we gave you a little bit of training, we pointed you in the right direction, I think, you know, like said, well, okay, so you can do this or you can do this, but this might actually work a little bit better. And I think that, you know, what's super important with any kind of content creation, and I don't need to tell you this because you create a lot of content, but you got to be flexible with your idea, and you've got to be willing to sort of adapt and change. And if something's not working, then you got to move on, 100%. Right? So,
No, I mean, yeah, we'll recap our story on how we met, I think, later on in the episode. But I think to start off, many of our viewers who may be listening on YouTube haven't really seen us in the UMFM studio at all. Right. And to be honest, we've barely been in the U of M studio, especially doing a live show. Right. We are doing a live show on Tuesday.
Yeah.
So please tune into that.
Are you bringing all the cameras and everything down?
Ooh, we should. We can.
Bring something.
We got to bring something. Of course. And so for the people who don't know what UMFM radio station is, how would you summarize the station as a whole?
Okay, so the easiest explanation is that UMFM, or our official call letters, are CJUM. We're at 101.5 on the FM dial. We've existed on the third floor of the University of Manitoba campus, Fort Garry, since 1998. And so we are the campus and community radio station that originates out of the University of Manitoba. And so campus and community means that we serve both the campus plus Winnipeg's outlying community as a whole. And so our whole idea is that we want to give a platform, give a voice to music and ideas and personalities and, you know, people who normally don't get that voice or opportunity elsewhere, right? Like Winnipeg's radio landscape, you know, per capita for the city our size, very, very, very full. But and you know, not to disparage anybody, but if you drive around in your car and you tune into the radio, you can switch from station to station to station and hear the exact same artist or the exact same song, and it's eerie sometimes, right? It's like, and it's always been that way, right? Even when I was younger, growing up, listening to the radio, artists were different, the music was different, but the fact that there wasn't a lot of diversity, that has not changed. And so a radio station like UMFM, or there's a couple other, CKUW at the University of Winnipeg, also CJNU, which is a community station. Our whole idea is that we want to do things a little bit differently, right? You know, you're going to hear some stuff that you hear elsewhere, certain artists, etc. But it's mostly, we're not big radio personalities, right? It's content driven, and it's a place where, you know, like a bunch of guys who have an idea can come in, can kind of pitch that idea, and if it works, it works. If not, we'll figure out a way to kind of make it work. We are predominantly volunteers, so there's about 140 active folks who are contributing to the station in some way each and every week. And that's not even just being on the air. That's behind the scenes stuff, production, helping with like promotion and marketing and stuff like that. So it's a thing, man. And it's weird how it kind of, since 98, I've been involved since 99. I was thinking about this on the drive over, how like next year I will have been at UMFM for longer than I haven't been at UMFM, which is really, really kind of crazy. But seeing how it was when I started to where it is now, it continues to kind of blow my mind. So.
How did you get involved into UMFM? Like, what was it like before? Because obviously 1999, I was not alive. I was going to say. I was born in 2000, so.
Yeah, well, okay, so growing up, I always wanted to be on the radio. Okay. I wanted to be a broadcaster. I wanted to be a sports broadcaster. Specifically, I wanted to do play-by-play on baseball games. And so, you know, it was kind of like this dream back of mind. And I went to university, and it was just, and I'm going to totally age myself here, but it was just as the internet was starting to blow up. Okay. So like .com boom, whatever. There was money in technology. There was money in programming. And so I went to school, and it was going to be computer science, which I had an aptitude for, or communications, broadcasting. Gotcha. And I decided at that time I wanted to make money. And so I got a comp-sci degree, and I was a programmer for probably about 4 years. Wow. I kind of worked really, really hard to finish the degree because I wanted to get working. I wanted to start to sort of build a life. And I totally burnt myself out and ended up hating it. I was like doing coding and stuff, sitting in front of a screen for 14 to 16 hours a day. And it was working. I worked at a small firm. And when I started, it was a group of about 12. And by the time I ended, it was me and the guy who owned the company. So like people were just slowly kind of leaving. And my role changed from being just a coder to being the network admin, the tech guy, the guy who repaired stuff. And yeah, I was still relatively young, and I got burnt out. And so I put in my 2 weeks notice, quit, didn't have a job lined up. And I ended up going and getting a job at a record store, working downtown in the city here, when record stores actually were physical things where you could go and like flip through stacks of music. Yeah. And one of my coworkers was volunteering at UMFM. So the station had come online in 1998, and they needed a co-host for a night. Their regular co-host was sick. And so I went. I'm like, yeah, I can talk about music for an hour. And the station manager at the time came out of her office and was like, hey, you actually like you kind of sound like you know what you're doing, and
Hey.
you've got a good voice, and you've got a sort of, you pause at the right time, you've got a good cadence, you're sort of professional. She's like, have you ever thought about getting involved? And I'm like, well, this is what I wanted to do. And yeah, I've never left.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I never knew that about you.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you got that job at the record store, were you fulfilled from that?
I mean, you know what? Like, I never got to work retail. Like a lot of people's first jobs are working like service industry, so working in a restaurant or working retail,
Yep.
right? I worked at a golf course, and so I listened to a lot of radio, right? I worked at a swimming pool for a year, and then I worked at a golf course for 4 years, and so the radio is always on. And so this is where I started to notice that repetition and the sort of similarity of content. And then I found a late night sort of haven for radio. CBC used to have these amazing programs. One was called Nightlines, one was called Brave New Waves, and it was like all sorts of weird music, stuff that you wouldn't hear, right? And so at that same time, I was, I would go down and I would visit my family in the States, and I'd watch MTV, and I was reading Rolling Stone magazine and learning about all these different bands. And so I was spending a lot of time in record stores. So when I ended up actually working in one, yeah, it was kind of like a dream job.
Yeah.
The pay was horrible.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. Going from a computer engineering,
I went from
degree
making a lot of money to making minimum wage very, very quickly.
Yeah.
But I mean, at the end of the day, at one job, I was not happy. And at the other job, I was extremely happy. So, it kind of all balances out. But yeah, I liked working. I liked working at the record store. But then, it's sort of, I was there right kind of on the cusp of when the whole sort of music retail thing kind of took a downturn. And you could see like record stores were closing across the country. And so sort of at that same time, position had opened up at the radio station. And so I applied for it and I got hired. And so when UMFM started, for the first couple of years, was one full-time employee.
Okay.
And volunteers. Yeah. And so I was the second, I guess, full-time employee that was hired. And so I was initially hired as like the assistant program director. And so I was helping sort of train new hosts and figure out, where programs were going to fit in our schedule. Plus I was doing a lot of production, a lot of basically wearing all sorts of different hats.
Yeah.
But then, the job sort of started to focus more on working with music coming in. So building the music library, which was obviously something that I loved, and training and helping people sort of get on the radio. And so, I guess 2001, the former station manager, my predecessor, she decided to go back to school, and there's a job that opened up. She literally told me about half an hour before our annual general meeting that she was going back to school, and that she was about to announce to the entire group that she was stepping down.
Oh no.
And I was just like, oh, okay. Well, I guess
I'll take it.
I'll be the guy
Yeah.
in the interim. But then it ended up becoming a permanent thing, and
Wow.
I've been there ever since.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Do you remember your first time on the air?
Yeah, absolutely.
And what was that like?
I mean, it was nerve-wracking. It's funny because when I'm training new hosts in the booth, I tell the story of my first time on the air, and it's like it is a mistake that everybody will make within the first 6 to 8 shows, right, is that they will leave their microphone on while they're playing music, and they'll talk, and the mic is live. And so, you know, like, I thought I was super slick. I planned my show. You know, I had a great playlist. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to go in, I'm going to play a bit of a longer song. I'm going to get settled, and I'm going to get feeling comfortable. So I put this song on, and I call my girlfriend at the time, and I'm like, are you listening to this? Like, I'm on the radio, right? And she's like, yeah, it sounds great. And then all of a sudden I see the phone start lighting up, right? And I'm like, it's wild. There's people out there, they're listening, they're calling, they're going to tell me how great I am, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just like, in our booth, we've got 6 lines, right? So I'm talking on line 1, line 2 starts blinking, then 3, then 4. I'm like, okay, I got to let you go.
Yeah.
I got to talk to my fans, the masses, right? Pick up first guy. I'm like, hey, how's it going, UMFM? He's like, yeah, your microphone's on.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, oh, okay, thanks. And then I pick up, and he's like, pick up line 3, right? And the guy's like, yeah, you've been talking over this entire song. I've heard your entire conversation. And I'm like, so.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's like the number one rule that I talk to all new volunteers about. It's just like, here it is. When the microphone is on, it kills the speakers in the booth. So if you're not hearing the music that you're playing, it's because your microphone is on. And everybody does it at least once.
Okay.
Yeah. So
good to know. We will keep that in mind when we when we get in the booth.
When you guys come in on Tuesday,
yeah,
you have the benefit of having a producer,
100%,
a board op, right?
Yeah.
So hopefully I'll remember not to make that mistake.
That's awesome.
No.
That's awesome. Then were you like nervous, like afterwards, like you're halfway through your show or at the beginning of your show and the mic's on, how do you manage the rest of the show? Are you like,
you know what, like,
what's going through your head at that point?
It's being behind the scenes, being behind the microphone. I've never felt any sort of nerves.
Okay.
This sort of thing,
yeah,
this makes me nervous.
Really?
Being in front of a camera, getting up and talking in front of a room, and it's kind of weird to hear, right? Because literally, I talk for a living. Yeah. I talk to people. I go out to events. I can walk up to anybody in a crowd and have a conversation, find some sort of commonality, and engage, right? But I'm very much a behind the scenes guy. And so that booth, that's my environment, right? Like, that's my second home. And I love that sort of situation. So, I mean, and I tell anybody who comes in, like, there are 3 things that you need to get over. A, you need to get over your nerves because nobody can see you. B, you need to get over the sound of, like, or the idea that you don't like the sound of your voice, right? Because guess what? Nobody likes the sound of their own voice. So you just got to get over it and don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And the third thing is, like, campus radio it's a totally different beast. People who are listening to campus radio are not expecting to hear big booming voices, loud personalities. They're expecting to hear awkward pauses. They're expecting to hear, you know, oh, I played the wrong song. Here, I'm going to cue up the right song. Oh, I played the wrong track. Oh, I played a commercial. Oh, I'm playing 2 things at once, right? It's authentic, right? And the thing is, it's just like, we tell people, you make a mistake and you just move on. You don't acknowledge it. Nobody's going to notice. And at the end of the day, it's campus radio and no one's listening anyways, right? That's the joke. I know that we have lots of people who are listening, but just get over yourself, right? Just have fun.
Just go with it, and something eventually will turn out the way that you want. If nothing happens, just keep moving. Yeah, and I think that's one thing we learned from you guys as well, especially when the first idea came of, like, pitching a show, and the first original was like doing it on the air. We're like, but what if we say something wrong? What if this doesn't happen? What if that happens? No. And I do remember a very similar conversation, you just being like, it's fine.
Yeah.
It happens.
Well, and so what's interesting, like, so we met in 2020 or 2019.
Yeah.
You guys produced your first episode in 2020, which obviously 2020 pandemic happens, world explodes, university shuts down, UMFM is broadcasting throughout the entire thing, but for 2.5 years, all of our volunteers were producing their content at home. So in a way, like you figured out the curve
100%.
sort of before the curve. But what's interesting is since we all came back in April of 2023, really the university sort of opened fully. 2022, university opened fully. There has been probably about 75% of people have come back. But there's still 25% who have completely embraced the whole idea of recording at home and producing. And it's because, for the most part, right? Like, some of these people have been with us for 25 years, and it's like, don't you want to come back and do the live thing? Don't you want to feel that rush and that energy? And they're like, I love that, but that booth gives me, like, still doing it live gives me anxiety. And I like the ability to edit out mistakes, smooth things out, right? And that's to each their own, right?
Yeah, of course.
Totally cool.
Speaking of that booth, I'll tell you a story that I don't think maybe you don't even know either. So the first time when we met was at the fall orientation 2019. You guys had a little table set up. You were recruiting volunteers. So I'm always the kind of guy like, let's go meet people. Let's go do something. Archer's a little bit more reserved. He's beginning to become like me a little bit and open up. But at that time, I was like, hey, let's just go say hi to everyone. Let's go see if they got some free stuff. Let's go see what they got. And I was like, no, we got to go. Let's just go, man. And so we walk up and they're like, we always walk through like that arms building hallway and you hear the radio. And we're like, who's on aux? Like, who's doing this? So we never knew it was actually campus radio. And so then we ran into you guys, hey, like, and you mentioned that you had a booth. And you're like, if you want to go check, it's upstairs. And so we're like, sure. And so we walk upstairs and when we walked into like the main booth with like the soundproof and like the big mics, me and Arsh both got chills. Like the first time when we walked into that place and we were like we were very excited. But we both looked at each other and were like, be chill. Be chill. Be chill.
So at your, because I know that some high schools have like a radio club or radio room or like something that broadcasts in the cafeteria or something.
No. So no. At our high school we didn't. But what me and Archie both did at our high school was the morning announcements.
Okay.
So we for a short period of time, we were on the announcement saying, good morning, Dakota. Today the announcements are blah, 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 blah. Make sure, whatever, hand in your forms by time. So we did do that in our high school. And that was kind of what was driving us to do a show or do something. Because our first year of university, we were just swamped with classes. And we realized, similar to maybe what you realized at the working computer science, was like, this is boring. Like, I'm just swamped with work all the time. I'm not having fun. This is not like what I thought university would be. And so we needed something to get our creative outlet. And you guys happened to be the outlet that allowed that to happen.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so that was kind of the inception of the show. And I remember you were like, okay, if you want to do a show, just pitch us an idea. There's usually be a little pitch form that I remember getting. And so we thought about it for so long. So long. We had like meetings. We had like 5-6 meetings. We're like, what are we gonna do? How are we gonna pitch this? What are we gonna say? And the idea, the first thing before we got the form, you said, hey, do you guys have an idea for a show? And Archie goes, everything. And that's where the guidance came in. You're like, okay, maybe not everything. Pick something. Pick something. And then slowly and steadily the idea of Two for Eyes came to be. And I was looking through my memories a couple days ago, and the first time when we saw our show, like Two for Eyes, on Spotify.
Okay.
We were on like a Zoom call with you. And you were showing us how the RRS feed marks.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
And we were jumping. We were jumping.
Well, and I mean, it's interesting because, you mentioned you were born, what, 2000?
2000, yeah.
Right? So this whole generation of kids, and I use that term with a great amount of endearment. Everybody who's younger than me, I call a kid.
Yeah.
You've got different benchmarks, and you've got different ideas, and you've got different things, right? I've got teenagers, right?
Yeah.
And like the fact that they're gonna see me on a YouTube video, right?
Yeah.
Like they're searching for my name on YouTube, and find these old interviews and stuff that I've done, but seeing new hosts get wide-eyed about stuff like that, it's like, oh yeah, okay. So now, right, like when I'm doing the training, I know there are certain different things to lead with too, right? Where it's like, oh yeah, okay, so you can put your show on Spotify, you can do this, and then, yeah, right? And so, yeah, it's interesting. That's great the way, like, you talked about how, university ultimately, it's like, it's what you make it, right? You go to class, and the University of Manitoba, like, I've been there for a very, very long time. It's very much a commuter campus. People come, they go to class, they leave, and at the end of your 4 years, 5 years, right, you have your piece of paper. It's great. You move on to the next thing. But ultimately, I find like that to be kind of an unfulfilling experience. And honestly, like, university is the last experience that you get to truly dictate yourself before you have to full on become an adult, right? And start like working for a living and all of the different fun pressures that come with adulting. So it is totally what you make of it. And, that's the one thing that was like getting through COVID, honestly, working from home. It was easy for me because it allowed me to, stay in my pajamas all day, whatever, but also like get out for walks with my dog and sort of work at my own pace. The radio station, we were set up for that sort of remote work because the university shuts down for 2 weeks every year at Christmas time. But what I really missed was I missed seeing my people, right? The rest of the radio family, but also meeting new people. And so 2022, when we came back the first year, people were sort of cautious about getting involved. But what I found, like, this year, it was like as close to being back to business, back to normal as I've ever seen it. And, like, we've put like probably 35, 36 new volunteers through training this year. A lot of them are bringing new shows to the airwaves. A lot of people are doing things behind the scenes. And it's been super invigorating for us because, we're never under the idea that somebody's going to be a lifer at UMFM, right? It's a volunteer gig. People have lives will change, right? Priorities change. We're happy to work with you for the time that we get to work with you, but then you're inevitably going to move on, and it's sad and it sucks. But the cool thing about it is there's always somebody new coming in with another cool idea, and we get to give them that opportunity that we gave you or we gave the other show hosts, right? So it's the beauty of the ecosystem there, and it's what makes the station a really, really special place. And so being able to work with new volunteers, we get invited to at least one sort of event a week where we're setting up speakers or we're playing music or we're tabling, and it's just been so good to get out and talk to people again, right? And so that was the whole idea that for bringing pledge-o-rama back as well, was that, this is our 25th year in existence. and it's been a great year on campus, sort of getting back to doing things in a normal way. And so it was important then that this is kind of like the icing on the cake was bringing the pledge drive back too. So
Yeah, I was going to say, not only are you guys just a radio station, there's so much more to it.
Yes.
In terms of all the campus events, a lot of the events outside as well, working with festivals, working with events all across the city. And I think in that way, the show works perfectly with U of M in the sense that we're building Winnipeg.
Yep.
We're curating and we are supporting what comes through our city.
Yep.
And that is one thing that also drew us to UMFM. Let's talk about this pledge drive.
Okay.
So we could have got you on at any moment. We thought about it for a long time, but
well, I've been wondering, but
yeah,
no,
no,
that's fine.
No, we were coming. And so I think right now is the best time in order to have you on here
of course.
To talk about the UMFM pledge drive.
Yes.
So personally, never really been a part of the pledge drive, but saw it happening from
afar.
Afar. And this year, it's coming back for the first time since COVID.
Yep.
One, what is the pledge drive? And go through sort of the idea behind it and what it is. I was at the meeting. You said a lot of great points, and we'll touch on some of them. But
okay.
What is the pledge drive?
Okay, so I'm going to say every campus and community radio station across the country does some sort of form of fundraising, funding drive, pledge drive, what have you, right? Ours is called pledge-o-rama. It is a week-long explosion of radio where, for that 1 week a year, we ask our listeners to give back to support the radio station, right? So we feel like for 51 weeks of the year, we're out there, we're supporting the community, we're bringing, great content to people's ears. And so for this 1 week, we're asking our listeners, our friends, our family to give back to us. And so this year, what we're doing is we're trying to raise $28,000 over the course of a week. The $28,000 accounts for approximately 13% of our annual operating budget. And so people can go to our website, it's umfm.com/donate, and they can pledge online. It's probably the easiest way to do it. We've been doing this since 2012. Obviously, you mentioned almost 4-year gap. But the first year we started, most of the donations were coming in over the telephone. So it was like your old sort of PBS or Variety Club telethon, right? Where it's like, we need you to call, here's the number. If you call and donate, we're going to give you this tote bag or this coffee mug. I'm a big fan of tote bags and coffee mugs. Same. But our whole idea after that first year, the merch was okay, but it was like, no, you know what? Like, I think we can do better on this. I think that what I want to do is I want to partner with really cool local artists, graphic designers, and I want to find the best stuff, the stuff that people use or don't know that they need in their life. And it's stuff that's durable, it's going to last, and it's going to be something that just doesn't get tossed in a box or given away at a garage sale or on free day or whatever, right? And so, if you donate to the radio station at any sort of amount, we give you UMFM merch. And so there's predetermined pledge levels that get you an escalating number of prizes, but we're going to give anybody who donates something. As you get kind of higher up, we've got a bunch of different bonus draws. We work with, you mentioned, like, we do lots of work with local festivals, local businesses, venues, and so it's also the one time a year where we ask them to support us, right? And so it's just like, it's a celebration of the radio station. We ask all our hosts to trot out their best possible show or to come on. Like, for me, if everybody came on, played a little bit of music, and just simply spoke from the heart
Yeah.
why this station is important to them, what sort of role it plays in their life, why I got involved, right? If that's all you came and did, right, I think that every year we would eclipse our goal, we would smash it through the roof, right? Because the listeners out there, they relate to that. This is why they listen. Is they listen for people who are doing things that are maybe a little bit odd, maybe a little bit sort of playing different music or whatever, but it's something that they speak to with so much dedication and so much passion. And like when we have programs that don't air for some reason. Like when you guys started to take a break, right?
Yeah.
We aired older episodes for about a month, but then it was just like, okay, well, this is going to be kind of tough because some of the stuff is time sensitive, et cetera, et cetera. But, for a couple of weeks afterwards, until we kind of got the word out, people are like, oh, where's 204 Rise? Well, I listen to 204 Rise every Tuesday. Like, where'd those guys go?
Yeah.
Right? I have a show on Saturday mornings. He sort of stepped away, needed a break, and back in October of 2022.
Yeah.
And so I ran old broadcasts, and it was going to be the same thing, right? Slowly it was going to phase out. So I phased it out, and all of a sudden I got barraged with emails.
Yeah.
Like, where is Buckle Up Radio? Where is Mr. Buckles, right? Like, this is part of my Saturday morning.
Yeah.
I need this.
It's a routine.
It's a routine.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, you know what? It takes me 10 minutes to prep that show every week.
Yeah.
And it means a lot to these people. I don't know any of these people, but it makes an impact on their life. And it's just like, that's what the radio station's all about. And I'm happy to do that. So, yeah.
Aw, that's very sweet. That's very sweet. And I think that's one thing I want to mention as well, that it's not a point of, here, just give me money. It's not that at all. No. It's really just a way to support the radio station, the shows that people love, and really bring together a community.
Right. And like by extension, right, like supporting UMFM, which is one small part in a larger Winnipeg arts community, you are also supporting with the Winnipeg arts community, right? Like we turn around and we provide services to, like I said, festivals and galleries, and we partner with the opera, the ballet, all sorts of different artistic endeavors that are big and small. And we're all kind of, a lot of us are not for profit, a lot of us are working on shoestring budgets, a lot of us are sort of dealing with fluctuating audiences, right? And so it's important, I think, one of the things that has been written about a lot is that a city remains vibrant if it's got an arts and cultural scene that is also vibrant, things that are happening, right?
Yeah.
You see if, like they're talking about, the city of Winnipeg is talking about cutting the public art consultation budget this year, right? And there's a huge outcry because, people are like, I maybe don't understand those big statues or those murals or whatever, but I drive by them.
They're nice, yeah.
They're nice, right? It's aesthetically pleasing. It puts a smile on my face. But at the end of the day, I also want to live in a place that promotes creativity and does stuff like that, right? And so, donating to an outlet like UMFM is like raising your hand and saying, hey, I believe in the arts. I believe in the idea of community. I believe in freedom of speech. I believe in grassroots media. And, we talked about it in the meeting, but, the radio station, all of our social media has been blocked for the last 8 months. And it caused a lot of anxiety for people because, and I don't need to tell you guys this because you're content creators, social media plays a major role in all of our lives, and some might say it plays too much of a role in our lives, right?
Yep.
And so, I had hosts being like, how am I going to promote my show? How will people know what's going on? How will people know when to tune in? And it's like, well, like, your show's been on the air since 1998. Facebook only started being open to the public in like 2008, 2009. So what did you do for those first 10 years?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh yeah, I guess, eh? So it's, it's important for an outlet like UMFM to be able to continue and grow and thrive despite having like roadblocks like that thrown at us as well. And so, yeah, it's pledge-o-rama. It's an exhausting week for Michael and I because we're there pretty much round the clock. I mean, I got home last night just before 2:30, and I was back at the station this morning just before 8:30.
And now you're here.
And now I'm here, and now I'm going to go back to the radio, and yeah, but at the end of the day, right, like, it's the least I can do, right?
It's almost like a cause and effect in the way that if people support local events, local radios, local art, it's a way for the art to also elevate themselves as well. A way for the show, and I'll say it for us, when we see a comment on our video, when we see a like, when we see a new follower, it almost gives us fuel to be like, okay, we're going to go, the next one's going to be even better. The one after that, we're going to try to do as much as things, whether that's behind the scenes stuff, whether that's getting cool guests, whether that's whatever, the way that we speak, elevating that because there is someone watching, because we know. And whether it's one person or a million people, as long as we're making some sort of difference in some sort of way, that cycle just keeps going and going.
Right. Well, and at the end of the day, right, there's a reason why you're creating content. It's because you want eyes on it. It's because you want ears on it. And it's the same with our hosts, right? They are, doing a show that is all about Celtic music, or a show that only plays Indigenous artists, or, funk, folk, punk, hip hop, all of these things. But at the end of the day, they want to share their love of that particular music or the genre or topic, and they want to have somebody call in and say, hey, I love that track, or hey, what was that you just played, or man, I used to like tape your show on a boombox, right? Which happens. So it's very, very fulfilling to find out that you've played a small part in making somebody happy. And meeting listeners, having people call in, hit us up online during the pledge drive, and it's just like, like, I know when I do my show that I'm gonna get a donation from my mom and dad and my uncle and my wife and my sister-in-laws. But then when I scroll down that list and all of a sudden I see 4 or 5 names that I don't know, and then I reach out to them, because anybody who donates to my show, I'll play a request for them, and I ask them, I'm like, hey, how's it going? Like, how long have you been listening? Can I play something for you? And like getting to know people that way, and it's just like, yeah, I made an impact on somebody's life who I didn't even know, and that at the end of the day is pretty awesome.
100%. Impact, the word. I'll emphasize that word one more time. Leaving an impact is what really matters. Truly. I wanted to touch on some of the hardships that UMFM has been through.
Okay.
COVID was one of them, of course, working from home. But the other one I kind of want to touch on is the whole shutting down of news outlets. That you mentioned the social media being removed. Was that a scary time, especially when you received that news, especially being a, I wouldn't even consider UMFM a news outlet, but the way that was handled?
Was it scary? I mean, it's not like life or death scary.
No.
And it's certainly, it's more of an annoyance than anything, because at the end of the day, right, we're a community organization, and the best thing a community organization can do is reach out into the community. And so we had built up a really nice little network, you know, maybe 6,000 or 7,000 people on Facebook, the same on Instagram. And it was just like this nice little situation where, you know, you guys are doing a show, you've got a big interview, you tag us, we share it, right? And it's just kind of, we put stuff out, you guys share it. And so all of a sudden that abruptly stops.
Yeah.
And we can no longer post content and then trying to explain it to people, what's going on, and being like, well, I don't understand. UMFM isn't really a news outlet, et cetera, et cetera. Well, so the whole thing is, right, is like we are regulated by the CRTC in the same way that any other radio station or newspaper is. And so basically Meta just looked at the list. Here you all are, and we're just going to shut you all down. Now, do I believe in what the Canadian government was asking for journalists? 100%, right? I don't, and I've never believed in this idea that people who are doing the journalistic work and just like artistic work in general, folks shouldn't have to work for free. Folks should be sort of compensated for their time, for their effort. I do also feel like maybe the government bit off a little more than they could chew. I don't think that they expected that Meta was going to kick back at them the way that they did. And I think that their proposal was pretty forward. And, you know, I don't think that they assumed that Meta was going to be like, okay, so we've now had this happen in Europe. We've had this happen in Australia. We settled with both of those organizations. We paid out a lot of money. Now Canada is coming at us. And then once Canada comes at us, then the US is going to come at us and all of these other countries. And so at a certain point, they're like, nope, we're going to draw this line in the sand. And from what I understand, like through our national organization, the feeling is that Meta is not going to come back to the table. And so this is just this reality that we're going to have to live with. Google, on the other hand, was the other provider, and they've already come to an agreement. And they've already said that, you know, in perpetuity, we're going to give $100 million to the Canadian government, which is then going to be distributed through broadcasters and news organizations. And, you know, so it means that everybody, even UMFM, is going to see a small chunk of that, right? And so that's a sustainable thing, and that's a good thing. And I think that at the end of the day, right, that's the right thing to do. It's an annoyance, right? We have figured out workarounds, right? But it's also kind of taught me that we had way too many eggs in that particular basket, right? Because, you know, we, like a few other campus radio stations that hold their funding drives or pledge drives in the fall, when that news came down in August, we all canceled them, right? And it's like, it's not something that we can continue to afford to do, because even though it's only 12% of our operating budget, it is money that we need, right? 100%. So figuring out other ways of reaching out into the community when, unfortunately, that one was so convenient because everybody's got a phone, everybody's on social media, right? You guys are on social media, my mom's on social media, right? And it's like, it's just an easy way. But I think that the other thing is like seeing the interactions, it's instant gratification and it's a bit of a rush and it's a good thing. But the whole mechanics of it, I think, have been sort of moving towards not being such a good thing for a while. So getting out of that game,
pros and cons.
Pros and cons. Sure. Yeah. Just got to figure out other ways of doing it.
Of course.
Yeah.
What do you say to the people who say that radio's dead? there's no radio anymore. No one's listening to the radio. Which I know is not true, but
see, the thing is, I've been hearing that for a while, right? Probably the majority of the 23 years that I've been working there. Radio will never die. It's going to be around longer than we will be.
Yeah.
In one form or another, right? There are people who grew up on radio, like me, right? We're nostalgic for that format. There are people who are older than me, obviously, that are even more nostalgic for it. Everything in life, I find, trends and whatnot, it's cyclical. It all comes back around, right? What will impact us is, I think that at some point, if they take radios out of cars, right, that would be a problem.
Sure.
I don't see that happening.
No.
I think that also at its base in Canada, radio has been employed since the 1920s as a means of broadcast alert system, right?
Okay.
If emergencies happen, things happen, right? So now, obviously, we get alerts on our phones, but
that's another way to do it. Yeah.
And that's always been the way to do it.
Yeah.
So for that reason, radio is never going to go away. But the thing is,
what about viewership?
What's that?
What about viewership?
Well, we're a radio station.
Yeah.
So I don't worry about viewers. I worry about listeners.
Sorry, listenership.
Honestly, we have seen sort of a steady sort of fluctuation, even a bit of an increase, right? Like our weekly CUM, which is the average number of individual listeners, sort of hovers in the 45 to 50,000 range every week, right? I don't really worry myself with listener numbers, right? I know that the people who are tuning into to a radio station like UMFM consistently tune in, right? We are very much appointment listening, right? Somebody might tune in on Tuesdays to hear 204 Rise, and then they tune in Wednesdays to hear our theater program, and Fridays to hear the punk rock show, and Sundays to hear jazz, right? They have their favorites.
Yes.
They tune in for their favorites. I think that, listenership is kind of a metric that was created to drive advertising and to be able to sell advertising. That's never been our goal. The people that we're working with in terms of ad sales, it's local partners, it's new and emerging musical artists, it's people who can't afford to advertise elsewhere, right? But it's people who kind of speak to our whole sort of idea and model. I think that, one of the beauties of UMFM is that we are a organization that is bound to a number of different sort of benefactors or partners, but none of them dictate our day-to-day. And so if we need to change something, we can be nimble about it. We can be quick. We can move away from ideas that aren't working. We can gravitate towards ideas that seem like they are, right? Like we were very, very quick to adopt like online streaming when that became a thing. We were very, very quick to create a mobile app. And then when it became unfeasible for us to have a standalone mobile app, we made our website like fully immersible on your phone, right? Phones aren't going away. None of that stuff is going away. But I think that, people are still going to be able to stream our content, whether it's online, whether it's listening on the radio, whether it's downloading programs afterwards, right? I used to bristle at the idea of the kids who came in and wanted to be trained on how to do podcasts. I was just like, wow, podcast, we don't do that here. We're a radio station. And I still tell them, right, like, you can take your audio afterwards. We record everything. You can take it, you can edit it, you can post it as a podcast.
Yeah.
But radio is, you know, you're already doing this, right? I've seen people come in and try and solely start podcasts, and 204 Rise very much an anomaly in this, because you guys figured out very quickly that creating content is one thing, creating consistent content is a whole other beast,
game.
right?
Different game.
If you didn't, like, if you dropped your first episode, and then 3 weeks later you dropped episode 2, and then a week and a half later 3, and then scattered, right? It's never going to work, right? People come in like, I want to do a podcast. Okay, great, let's do this. And I show them how, and I show them the editing and the training and whatever, and it takes them 6 weeks to produce their first one. I'm like, well, great, you got one under your belt. Let's try and get number 2 done in 3 weeks. Well, I don't know if I'm good. It's like, you're going to need to be able to turn these things around in 2 or 3 days. So if you can't do that, do a radio show, 100%. Right? Like, do the radio show, because the whole podcast only idea involves so much editing and sort of focused creation, and a lot of people don't have the patience for that.
No, absolutely. I'm so glad you mentioned that. One reason is because we've talked about this on the show so many times, that most podcasts fail after their 6th episode, because it takes 6 times to realize how much work it takes. It takes 6 times, because first couple are so much fun. The first, oh my god, I just made a podcast, me and my boys are talking, or me and my friends are talking. Second one, oh, some people are listening, oh my god, I released it. And then by the 6th time, by the 7th time, you realize, oh, camera didn't record, audio didn't record. Oh, there's a buzzing sound in the corner. And then this things start going around. So I'm so glad you mentioned that. I also want to give you another piece of credit. I know I've given you a lot of flowers today, but I think one of the reasons why we were able to be so consistent is because we didn't want to let you guys down, in the sense that we knew that we had to also post on UMFM every Tuesday at 11:30. So we're like, no matter what, we have to release a show. And so that was kind of our driving factor of, because I don't know if we probably would have fell into the same boat of, okay, here we just did our first one. It took 20 hours to edit. It took so much long, and we put it together. We had to do this again? Oh, this is horrible. And so, I another place where we owe you guys credit is giving us that structure and that routine of like, okay, every Tuesday something's going out. Every Tuesday something's going out. And whether that means we record months in advance, weeks in advance, that's on us to figure out a system behind.
Well, and I mean, I think that, like, you nailed it. It's the structure, it's the repeatability, right? The thing that's been cool for us getting into the whole sort of podcast game is, you know, it was initially a way for us to chase some project grants and do some like one-off series that are like sort of standalone, one season, that's it, it's done. But now what we've kind of spun that off into, we use those project-based podcasts that we've done as showcases for faculty on campus. And so we're starting to work with like different profs and different faculties and saying, hey, look, like, you've got these great ideas. You could be putting this out as a podcast. Obviously, the medium does not work for absolutely everything, but also once some of the academics figured out that all of this stuff can be, like, a podcast episode can be cited as a piece of academic research in the exact same way that a paper can. And it's just like, oh, okay. So like, we've done stuff with, we've done 2 different podcasts with anthropology. We did one last year with education. We've got a couple coming up with Bannatyne campus with the doctor, working down there. Engineering, architecture. We've done a couple things where we've partnered with Indigenous Achievement and the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation. And so getting to utilize the space in a new way and sort of figuring out, oh, hey, you know what, like we can take all of these radio techniques and storytelling techniques and editing and hosting, and we can turn it into something completely different. Gives me this idea that, you know, to get back to what you said, radio is not going to die, right? If you are able to adapt and sort of stay current and stay relevant, or even stay on the fringes, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to go anywhere.
I agree. And it comes down to also good content. If you make good content, people will follow you wherever it is, right? And radio, and especially UMFM, is providing opportunity to people, right? We walked in, you didn't ask anything, you said, hey, this is what you need. Okay, here's what we're going to show you how to do. Here's how the booth works. Go for it. And so if anyone has an idea, they can just walk in, pitch it to you, pitch it to you guys, and you're willing to provide that guidance.
Absolutely.
Versus going on your own, which could be so much harder.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, the thing is, like, we have equipment.
Yeah.
And I kind of think about it in this way, right? It's like, so when I got out of programming and I had quit the whole sort of database programming thing, and I'm sitting there and I've got this comm sci degree, and I'm thinking to myself, well, I just spent a bunch of money. I have this degree. I'm not exactly using it. Maybe I'm going to go back to school. And I thought about going into creative communications at Red River. I'd gotten accepted. I deferred it when I went down to Minnesota and got the comm sci. And then so I applied again. And at the same time, I had gotten the job opportunity at UMFM. And so it's like, okay, so I can pay to go get trained to get a piece of paper, or I can get paid and I can get real life experience, right? We have volunteers who come in and they're like, I want to be on the radio, or I want to do this, you know, I want to be in production, or I want to make podcasts, or I want to do this. And it's just like, okay, we give you a space where you can try this out. What you think you want and what is actually possible in practice isn't always the exact same thing.
True.
Also, you know, like, if it doesn't work out, no harm, no foul, right? You've come, you've tried something, you've realized that maybe it wasn't what you wanted. So it's kind of interesting. At the end of the day, like, I've always I like big ideas and I like good ideas. So, you know, if you come to me and you've got a good idea, I'm going to try and figure out how to make it work. If I see a local business out who is like trying something new and is like doing something that we haven't seen here, I reach out to them and I say, hey, how can we help you? Can I, you know, offer you 6 months worth of free advertising? You know, like, I've seen so many good local businesses sort of start and stop, right? Small festivals. Hey, how can we help you promote? I want to see people come and buy tickets for your event. I want to see people come through your doors and buy whatever it is that you're selling, because I want you to be there 6 months from now, a year from now, 2 years from now, because I think that what you're doing is cool. And again, it gets back to the idea of community, right? If we're supporting these sorts of ideas, it means that these sorts of ideas are happening here on the regular, and it just makes the city a better place to be. And I mean, Winnipeg is not everybody's first choice. I've sometimes in the winter, man, I have lamented the idea of like, what am I doing here? Why did I buy a house here? Why am I raising a family here? But ultimately, where you are, you know, it is what you make it. And if we can kind of work together, and the radio station plays a small part in making this city a better place, then again, we're doing our job. So
no, I respect that mission and everything. I think that's something that everyone in this room and everyone listening stands for as well.
Yep.
I want to ask you one last question. If you had to give advice to someone who wants to be on the air and wants to start creating some sort of content, audio, video, whatever, but they're nervous to do that, what's something you would say to them?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I think that everybody who wants to work in those fields and work in that sort of space, initially, I think everybody is nervous with that stuff. Anybody who tells you that they are 100% sure shot confident on it, they're lying to you. They've established that confidence after putting things kind of into practice, after succeeding and failing and sort of figuring things out. But at the end of the day, right, like, get involved with a space like UMFM where you can come down and you can try different things. You can sort of see the things that you figure you might be interested in might not ultimately end up being the things that you are interested in, right? Being able to like sort of try and fail and figure out your idea in a very no pressure situation, I think is really, really important. And I would also say, like, if you want to be employable, learn all of the behind the scenes stuff, right? Everybody wants to be in front of the microphone. Everybody wants to be in front of a camera. Everybody wants to be the person in charge.
Yeah.
But it's the people behind the scenes that are always going to be indispensable, employable, right? And also learn all of the things, like learn how to produce, learn how to run all the tech, learn how to cut your own tape, learn how to edit, because at the end of the day, we are moving faster and faster towards a place where you got to be a jack of all trades. You got to not only know how to do one thing, you have to do 6 things. And if you can do 6 things, you're never going to have a hard time finding something to do. And if you can't find work, you're going to be able to create your own work.
Of course.
Right?
Of course.
So
that's very powerful. Well, on that note, thank you so much, Jared, for coming on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Check out UMFM. We're going to have the donation link at the top of the description. We are also going to be on the air live Tuesday at 11:30 a.m. So be sure to check that out as well. If you have a show, if you have an idea, go check out UMFM. They're happy to help. And continue rising. We'll see you next week. Peace.